Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part 4 of Mohamed's requested video. And Islam, Judaism, Christianity A Conversation. So, let's just get back into the video. I think I went back a little bit.
What about the potential for an arc of moral growth of one of these figures over time? Is that anathema, or is that possible?
I wanted to follow up sort of on that idea of immorality. Where's their humanity? A prophetic, like the problems that they encounter, the mistakes that they make, as they are human, rather than taking that away as something that was put on them later. Did I hear that right?
I think so. In Islam, our definition of infallibility to the prophets is that they were incapable of major sin or of ascribing to God a partner. So they were capable of mistakes, of slip-ups, of minor sin, but they were not capable of major sin. So that's where the Islamic definition of prophets, or how we categorize their mistakes as. And you got to understand that sometimes when I say I believe in Christ, or I believe in Moses, or I believe in Abraham, that does not mean that as a Muslim I believe in every story about Christ, Abraham, or Moses, peace be upon them all, that is found within Judaism and Christianity. And let's face it, that within Christianity and Judaism, right, there are different interpretations of who these men were and who these people were. And so, I think I'm talking too much now, but I would just say that that's where it still goes to the men that told us the stories of those prophets, who compiled those stories of those prophets, and which stories made it through, and then how were those stories that were told by men interpreted by other men that then reached us. And so that's where I would say that we have to be as critical of that, or we have to start there before we go to the prophets themselves and say, hey, that's something that I reject with the prophet himself. You don't agree?
So a challenge.
Yes.
You were the first one.
I know you guys put me in the middle for a reason.
Yeah, height. That was the reason. But isn't that a form of sanitizing? In other words, you would use the word, you would talk about sanitizing before in terms of, that we whitewash the prophetic and justice anger of these figures. Isn't it a form of sanitizing to say that if there's anything uncomfortable that's attributed to the prophet, I'm going to say the problem is in the attribution, not in the prophet? Isn't that in and of itself a form of sanitizing?
That's a good question. And I would say that it would be sanitizing if before I look to the attribution, I look to what I like and don't like, and then I toss it out or accept it on that basis. But I will scrutinize every attribution.
Got it. Yeah.
So in Islam, we have a very strict method of scrutinizing hadiths, which are sayings of the Prophet Mohammed, peace be upon him. There are some hadiths that are so beautiful, but they're not authentic from an Islamic perspective. Like if I'm true to the science of hadith, and I'm just like, I wish it was authentic because I love it, and I love this attribution, and I love this story, but it's not something I can ascribe. So as a Muslim, I start from that place. Is the attribution authentic or not? If it is, then what's the context? I want to understand the context, because I cannot believe that a man who was used as a vehicle of God's revelation himself lived an immoral life. So I need to look at that. I need to look at the attribution, then look at the incident itself. If I've determined that the attribution is authentic, then what is it that took place, and how do I grapple with that particular incident?
What I find interesting about this is that for Christianity, the root idea is God's redemptive work in the world, right? And the redemption is a change. Mm-hmm. And so mistakes and problems aren't a problem because it's just true. And we're all in that same boat together. And I might steal David's word, that arc, that redemptive work over time, not necessarily just a single individual, although yes, there's that too, but it's also as a world. Like the idea of a kingdom of heaven is not this other thing. but it's something we work toward now, right?
Right.
That we are redemptive agents in the world and are called to spread that redemptive truth of God. And so to say that even our prophets weren't part of that work, to me kind of undermines, I think, what the Christian kind of root of redemption really is.
So it goes to the definition of a prophet in Islam, and then it goes to the definition of what we classify as a major sin. So the story of Adam and Eve is the story of mankind. That Adam, who's a prophet, made a mistake. So the major sin here, when I class a major sin, I'm talking about murder. I'm talking about a different category. There's a very specific category of major sin in Islam. But
Like watching YouTube reaction videos.
redemption would occur with all of the prophets, with all of the stories of great people, and there are stories of redemption that are told by the prophets themselves. So the work of God, the entire concept of salvation in Islam is that you do your best, but your God is most compassionate, most merciful. And so long as he finds you on the day of judgment having tried your best to attain that mercy, then his mercy will overcome your shortcomings. And so there's a saying of the Prophet Mohammed, peace be upon him, that no one enters paradise by virtue of their good deeds, but instead by the mercy of God. That does not mean free pass, you don't have to do anything. That means you will do your best, you will strive, but you will fall short because you were created in a way that you are meant to fall short, but it is ultimately the mercy and the redemption of God that will overwhelm you and enter you into paradise. But that doesn't mean, my point is that the vehicles of God's revelation, the prophets themselves, and again, this would take a lot of deconstruction.
Sure.
Because who tells us the stories of Christ? Which stories of Christ are authentic from a historical perspective? If we were to take a step back and judge it from a purely objective perspective, whose story of Christ wins and becomes mainstream? Whose story of Moses wins and becomes mainstream? The methods of extraction are different as well amongst ourselves. And so with that, there are certain stories that maybe you're thinking of when I say that you're going, So I'll give you an example.
Noah.
Well, give me the story.
And he was naked and drunk on the beach.
We have, so that,
We don't read that part in church.
so that attribution from an Islamic perspective, we don't have that attribution in our text of Noah.
There you go.
So what would make your attribution more historically accurate than my attribution to Noah? Do you understand what I'm saying here?
It's more fun.
It's more fun. And I was talking to a young Muslim the other day. We have the story of sacrifice, the sacrifice of Abraham, that Abraham sacrificing his son. Now, Jews say it's Isaac, Muslims say it's Ishmael.
Yep.
But how could a man sacrifice his son? How could God command a man to sacrifice his son? And the Islamic answer to that is that Abraham saw a dream that he interpreted that way. But that was not, God never commanded him explicitly, go slaughter your son. And that's where the miracle took place, and it was a ram rather than his son. So we don't attribute immorality to the prophets. Mistakes, they made mistakes, but those mistakes would not compromise the integrity of the message that they had. And that's where the difference.
I think it goes a long way too, when you show they made mistakes, you're showing that they are human. And that no single person is perfect. And when you show they're human, you make them relatable in a way that I think people could find a comfort to, because everyone likes to think that, everyone knows they're not perfect, but everyone likes to think that they never make the big mistake. They will make small ones here or there. And if you can relate that to a prophet, or if you're a Christian, you relate it to Jesus, and I can't call Jesus a prophet in Christianity and so on and so forth, or Moses. If you just remember that they were human, then that should alleviate any potential issues you have with them in questioning. We can all be questioned about things. So I think that eases it up a little bit. growing up for me, I was always told Jesus was perfect, never did anything wrong, lived a perfect life. And I'm like, no one does. No one is born knowing the steps ahead of them and which one is right and which one is wrong. You have your own your moral course, but course isn't the word I'm thinking. Anyways, yeah, I think that's what I was saying.
Lies, I think.
All right, I'm going to pull us back a little bit from the wonderful text
This was great.
door that I opened.
Not typical of
oh my goodness, so much, I wish my husband was here.
It's like overhearing geeky theology.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I want to step back a little bit in some of the practicalities. In all traditions, head covering is a part. What does that mean? Why is there head covering in the various forms that it exists within each of the religions, for men and for women? And is it only for at times of worship, throughout the culture? What is the role of head covering?
Oh, I think Christianity, it is absolutely about humility before God. Mm-hmm. No question. I mean, how many of you grew up, I grew up Catholic, and I definitely saw my grandmother cover her head when we went to church. No question. You would not go into a church without a scarf, or they kind of look like doilies. I don't know, whatever those were. Mm-hmm. But certainly out of humility.
Humility.
For being in God's presence.
I talked about it before, but my Nana used to wear, she would have, it was like a silk kind of scarf, and it was always like a beige or a light pink or something like that. She'd throw it in, and then she would stuff it in her shirt. And I don't know how long it was, but like it never came free. Like with me, it would somehow wiggle free or start to fall over my face or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, no, it was perfect for her. Like she knew how to do it. So much so that she would have to put her hands like this and run it along her hair and her head, and then lift up and then get the other hand under it like that. Take this hand out, grab it, and then pull it out. I'm not even kidding you. I thought that she put it on first and then nailed it to her shoulders. I mean, it was on good.
Isn't it ironic, the difference between how a Muslim woman who covers her head is perceived and a nun? Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with the media. That has nothing to do with conditioning or engineering. So
a good point,
look, here's the thing. In our tradition, and Muslims loved being asked about their faith and not told about their faith. Mm. Like usually here's how interfaith dialogue for me usually is this: walking out of Walmart, you guys, and then it's gone. You know, it's like, okay, well, we could have had an exchange.
That's called interfaith monologue.
Yeah. I have those like 6 times a week. There are Muslim women that are here today that cover their heads. Ask a Muslim woman how she feels about her head covering, and if anyone forced it upon her, or if it was a choice that she made at some point in her life as a means of devotion and humility before God. And I guarantee you that you'll be surprised by the answer. So and I'm actually inviting you, all the sisters, I see a few sisters here, you're good with being asked about your hijab and the story of your hijab. Okay, good, you're all good with that. So you may ask them that question, don't ask me that question, and ask those sisters, because when they decided to cover their heads and why they decided to cover their heads. It is in this America, in 2018, hats off, literally, to the Muslim women in this country that insist on their Americanness and insist on their identity, because what they are doing is an act of resistance to bigotry, because they're insisting that there is no...
I see so many women around my area. You know, you go into grocery stores and whatnot, and you see them wearing it, and it doesn't faze me at all. You know, when you see it, you clearly know Muslim. But I don't look at them and go, oh, Muslim. Never did. They stick out. But I don't look at it and think, hey, why are you wearing that? Hey, take that off. No, that's disrespectful. You know what I mean? They'd be like, hey, take this off or rearrange the whole face thing because it's annoying me. And I'd be like, that's very hurtful. Very hurtful. And I just walk away like this, all defeated. But like, you know, you see it, and I'll say this, and I have to go by post 9/11. I see it, and I'm just like, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I know it bothers some people, because to them, those people, that woman in that, is it hijab? She is just as guilty as the people on the plane. And it's like, no, you kid, no. It's not how it works. One person over here does not make everyone else in the world guilty. It's not how it works. It isn't. You could attribute that to religion or political party, or, you know what I mean? You could use that as a basis and excuse for everything. Look, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm American. Okay, English is my fourth language, because the first three, I don't know what that is. It's garbage. I'm terrible at English, so that's my fourth. People who don't know me could see me in another country. Let's say I went to the Middle East. You would instantly look at me, not everyone, but a lot of people would instantly look at me and be like, ugh, American. Ugh. You know, and they would just attribute things to me. Not because of me, but because of other Americans and the government and this and that. So everyone does it, and we're all guilty of it. And it's one of the, I won't say every individual does it, but everyone knows someone who does it. And you could attribute that to skin color. We all have, as he said, it's a bigoted thing. You may not be a bigot or racist or this or that, but I bet you know someone who is. And I bet you that person does not care about what they say, what they do. You better not do it. You better not do it. That's what I thought. That's what I thought, stupid. Sorry, there's a fly on my webcam. I just realized that people are probably like, what was that about? No, there's a fly on my webcam. And he was walking around. He was just close enough to the lens. And then he started going over here and he went up on top. All right. I'm going to go a couple more minutes and then we'll end it.
That is an insistence that, no, I will be an accomplished woman, and whatever that accomplishment looks like, and I will insist on my religious identity. And it is just as oppressive to force a woman to take her head covering off than to force her to put it on. So when you see France and you see a woman on the beach, you know, who's wearing the burkini, God forbid a woman on the beach wearing a swimsuit that covers her entire body and her hair because she wants to enjoy the beach, but she also wants to abide by her religious obligations. And you've got police officers going to the beach and humiliating that woman and stripping her of her identifying cloth, and then doing that in the name of secularism and modernity and progress. That's the point. We need to look to it. We need to accuse our own lenses and our own constructs. And I'll let Muslim women speak for themselves as to why they chose to cover and why what they feel about that obligation.
I'll pause it right there. We got 2 more videos out of this, and we'll end it there. I have another sneeze coming on, so I can feel it. It's there. It's like right around here. It's working its way down. Okay, so there's a thanks button. You can donate to the channel. If you do donate, you can throw out a request. I'll do my best to get to it. Well, I will do the request if you donate. You just have to tell me what it is. You don't have to request. You can request without donating. That's where I was meaning to say. I'll do my best to get to it. It's on the list. It just takes longer now. My apologies. You can subscribe. Give a thumbs up. Give a thumbs down if you've always wanted to stick a private part in a guillotine. Because I'll make it happen. You better not. You stay away from the lens. Don't you fly to me. Yeah, you better fly away. Wherever he went. He'll be back, I'm sure. I gotta blow my nose again. So we're gonna end it here. Back for part... Oh, there he's back. Back for part 5. Until then, have a good day, have a good night.